George Marshall Cooper Jr., do you take Amanda Elizabeth McAllister to be your lawfully wedded wife?
Imagine this, a young couple brought together by chance, tested by circumstance, and locked in a marriage that was never entirely about choice. They love each other, yes. They even share moments of warmth and laughter. But deep down, there's a tension neither of them can escape. And if you've been following their journey closely, you already know the truth. Georgie and Mandy are destined for divorce. Not because they don't care, not because there isn't love, but because everything about their story, from the way it began to the way it's written in the Big Bang Theory timeline, points to a future where this marriage ends. And what makes it even more fascinating is how the writers have layered in hints from the very beginning. If you go back and trace their relationship episode by episode, you'll see the cracks forming long before the wedding vows, long before the baby, and long before their spin-off even gave them a show of their own. These aren't just random arguments or sitcom misunderstandings. They're signals, warnings, pieces of a puzzle that lead to one inevitable conclusion. Georgie and Mandy will not stay together.
Whoa, I'm a married man.
You sure are.
Let's start at the very beginning of their relationship in young Sheldon. Remember how it started? Georgie lies to Mandy about his age. He's just 17, still figuring out who he is, while Mandy is in her 20s, older, more mature, and living a life Georgie hasn't even begun to imagine.
She was worried I was a little too young, so I lied about my age.
You sure did.
That one lie set the tone for everything that followed. Even after he confessed and she forgave him, the power imbalance was baked in. Mandy has always been the adult in the room. She's always the one keeping things steady, while Georgie scrambles to catch up. That imbalance is charming in the short term. Mandy rolling her eyes at Georgie's immaturity, Georgie grinning his way out of trouble. But in a marriage, it's exhausting. One person carrying the weight while the other stumbles is not sustainable. And then came the pregnancy storyline. Mandy gets pregnant, and suddenly these two young people are thrown into a situation neither of them planned for. Their daughter, Cece, becomes the center of their world. They love her deeply. But let's be honest, this wasn't a family built on choice. It was built on circumstance. And when a relationship is forged under pressure, with obligations pressing down from all sides, the love often gets buried beneath responsibility. Already, we could see Mandy's frustration grow. Georgie, still a teenager and still impulsive, is trying to figure out how to be a father and a husband at the same time. Mandy, already tired from shouldering adulthood, is left raising both her baby and, in many ways, Georgie himself. That dynamic is sweet for television drama, but in real life, it corrodes a marriage. Now fast forward through some of their big moments. In Young Sheldon Season 6, we see Georgie propose to Mandy. It's not a grand romantic gesture. It's born out of obligation, fear, and a desire to do the right thing. Mandy turns him down, not once, but multiple times. Why? Because deep down, she knows he's not ready. She knows this isn't the foundation of a forever partnership. Yet, eventually, she gives in. And when she does, the title of their spin-off tells us everything. Georgie and Mandy's first marriage. Not the marriage, not the love story, the first. And if it's the first, then by definition, it won't be the last. But the title is just one clue. Let's look at their behavior in first marriage. From episode 1, their differences are loud and clear. Mandy is practical, protective, and always thinking ahead for Cece. Georgie is still impulsive, still restless, and still more interested in hustling up his next big idea than settling down into a steady routine.
It's only temporary. I make my way up to cashier, then night manager, then manager, then regional supervisor. Then it's just a hop, skip, and a jump to HQ.
In one early episode, Mandy scolds Georgie for spending too much time daydreaming about expanding his tire business instead of focusing on family responsibilities. Georgie, on the other hand, feels stifled, like Mandy doesn't believe in his potential. That tug of war between ambition and stability is at the heart of their conflict. And here's the tragic thing. Neither of them is wrong. Mandy wants security. Georgie wants growth. But if one partner is always pulling toward safety and the other toward risk, the rope eventually snaps. Episode by episode, we see more signs. In one storyline, Georgie takes a financial gamble without consulting Mandy, convinced it'll pay off. It doesn't. Mandy's anger isn't just about the money. It's about the lack of partnership and the lack of communication. In another moment, Georgie skips out on a family dinner to chase a lead for his business. Mandy doesn't just feel abandoned, she feels like Georgie is already choosing his dreams over his family. These may seem like small sitcom conflicts, but they echo real-world issues that destroy marriages every day: money, communication, and priorities. And the writers are planting them deliberately. Now let's bring in the bigger picture. The Big Bang Theory itself. Sheldon tells us outright that his brother Georgie had multiple failed marriages. Multiple. That's canon. There's no escaping it. So we already know where this is going. This relationship, no matter how much heart or humor it brings, is doomed. The writers aren't hiding it. They're leaning into it. That's why they named the spin-off the way they did. That's why they're showing us these cracks early. They're preparing us. But what's fascinating is how this divorce will shape Georgie as a character. Think about adult Georgie in The Big Bang Theory. He's successful in business. He owns a chain of tire stores. But there's bitterness in him. He feels overshadowed by Sheldon, underappreciated by his family, and hardened by life. Where does that bitterness come from? It comes from here, from this failed marriage, from knowing that the woman he loved, the mother of his child, couldn't stay with him, from carrying the guilt that his immaturity, his ambition, and his inability to balance family and career cost him something he can never fully get back. That's why this divorce isn't just inevitable, it's essential to Georgie's arc. It explains the man he becomes. And here's the part that makes the whole thing even more tragic. Georgie and Mandy do love each other. They're not villains, they're not toxic, and they're not cruel. They're just mismatched in timing, in maturity, and in life stage. Mandy will eventually realize she's raising a man who wasn't ready to be her partner. Georgie will eventually realize that no matter how hard he tries, he can't be both the dreamer chasing opportunity and the rock of stability Mandy needs. And when they reach that breaking point, divorce won't be an explosion. It'll be a slow unraveling, a quiet acknowledgement that love isn't always enough. So if you're wondering why Georgie and Mandy will divorce, the answer isn't just one reason. It's 1,000 small ones. It's the lie that started their relationship. It's the pregnancy that rushed them into commitment. It's the imbalance of maturity. It's the clash between ambition and stability. It's the inherited dysfunction of the Cooper family. And it's the immutable canon of the Big Bang Theory. Together, these threads weave a tapestry that can only end one way. And when it does, it'll hurt. Fans will mourn. We'll remember the laughs, the tender moments, and the sweetness of their little family. But we'll also realize it was always meant to end this way. Because Georgie and Mandy's marriage isn't the story of everlasting love. It's the story of how heartbreak shapes a man, how failure fuels ambition, and how loss builds the foundation for the future. Without this divorce, Georgie's journey wouldn't have the same depth. With it, his arc becomes not just believable, but unforgettable. So keep watching closely. Notice the sighs Mandy gives when Georgie dodges responsibility. Notice the way Georgie lights up when he talks about business opportunities, even as Mandy rolls her eyes. Notice how both of them are right, and yet both of them are wrong at the same time. These are the breadcrumbs leading us to the inevitable. Georgie and Mandy will divorce. Not because they don't love each other, but because sometimes love just isn't enough. In Georgie and Mandy's First Marriage Season 1, Episode 16, the lead characters had an argument over whether to have more kids. Mandy wasn't sure she ever wanted more kids, especially before her career was on the right track. Georgie, on the other hand, was positive he wanted more kids. Plus, he wanted his kids to be close in age. Despite all their other issues, I think this is the real reason Georgie and Mandy will get divorced. Clearly, they aren't on the same page about the future and their family, and it will eventually tear them apart. Of course, there's always the possibility that Mandy will change her mind. However, even if she does, the fact that Georgie and Mandy got married without knowing what their future together looked like is a big red flag.